The Buffalo Bills are through with minicamp, where Stefon Diggs participated in the last day. We'll talk about his return and what that means moving forward.
The passing game always is the point of emphasis in spring practices. We'll talk about some of the pass catchers who stood out in May and June.
And then we'll flip to the defense, where the Bills added some players lately, but still have a lot of decisions to make. The PlayAction podcast starts now.
As a member of the media, I'd like to personally thank Stefon Diggs and Sean McDermott for giving us a very newsy Bills minicamp at a time when spring practices usually are pretty quiet. Katherine, what's one of your takeaways from the kerfuffle that happened on the 2 days of minicamp?
Yeah, well, with Sean McDermott coming to talk to everyone on Wednesday for a press conference that was not planned, we usually don't hear from him after practice. It was obviously very clear he wanted to smooth this over, clarifying that he felt things were resolved with Stefon Diggs, that Tuesday and Monday, Stefon was there, left, which was excused, McDermott said, and they're all good to go. So I think now it's just kind of moving it forward. Obviously, when Diggs wasn't at voluntary OTAs, that's such a different scenario. Those are voluntary. There was that initial confusion this week of just what's going on. But I think a lot of it, even if there is still some tension, I don't know a workplace that doesn't have any. I don't think that's inherently bad. And we hear again and again about how it's rooted in those goals, that competitive nature Diggs has. So, I think still we don't totally know everything that went on behind the scenes, obviously. But I think a little summer break's good for everyone. I'm not so worried about it.
Yeah, I think that we can definitely believe that it has smoothed over because Diggs was there for the Wednesday practice. I mean, I think the fact, obviously, there was some heated discussions because McDermott said we all needed a break. I think we can conclude it's not about money because Stefon has made $80.6 million in cash so far in a little over 3 years, and that doesn't even count what he's going to make this fall. Stefon clearly had issues with the offense and or personalities on offense because he said as much at the Super Bowl where you were there, Katherine. So, there's no way Diggs is going anywhere this year financially. They need him. He's critical. It doesn't work without Diggs, as Josh Allen said. I thought Allen was very interesting. He said, he took it upon himself, needed to be better in communication. I think that makes sense. Diggs is pushing for things he wants on the offense. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, I think Diggs is pushing Josh to be more accountable or to do whatever Diggs wants him to do. So that's one element, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, back to the Super Bowl, he was saying there how the night after they lost to Cincinnati when the season ended, he was just watching that game over and over looking for answers. So I think just, still trying to find solutions there when it was a frustrating end to the season for them, obviously, seems to be such a driving factor here.
I think Josh made a good point. Winning solves all ills. And we've seen that over and over with so many Bills teams in the past. So I think, obviously they all know Josh Dorsey, Diggs is unbelievably essential to the plan this year. And I think that this is going to be a calm situation throughout the summer and training camp. The question is, what happens when they hit some rough waters in the regular season? And I'll raise this point. In the master plan, if things go wonderfully on offense, Dalton Kincaid is going to be key. Damian Harris is going to be really good. Their running game is going to be better. They're going to be able to get better production out of the slot. Deontay Hardy is going to be a better gadget weapon than Isaiah McKenzie. all of that, if everything goes great, that equals maybe fewer targets for Diggs. A little fewer. I mean, he's obviously the number one focus, but it could equal a fewer. So Diggs doesn't like fewer targets. So this is going to be Diggs' temperature, and whether Diggs is putting pressure on Josh to look his way more than maybe in some cases Josh feels is necessary. This is going to be something to keep watching during the season.
Yeah, and I think to that, it's the result ultimately that it's too far away to say what happens there because, like Josh Allen said over and over, it's June. This is mini camp. What's going to matter mostly is if they win those games, and those are not till September. So just kind of far off at this point. So, Mark, you mentioned some of those things that could come to fruition for the Bills offense, whether it's from new players, using guys a little differently. Let's go into that a little bit more. I know it was just minicamp, but what were some of your takeaways from this last week?
Well, I'll make two. One, Dalton Kincaid, obviously first round draft choice. There's no minimizing what a key element they hope he is going to be. Obviously, every first round draft choice, there's high expectations, but they drafted him to make an impact this year as soon as possible, to be a key cog in the offense. And I think we can draw from spring practices, they intend to make every effort to make him a key cog right away. The guy, it's no surprise, he plucked the ball beautifully. Von Miller raved about him on Wednesday. I mean, the guy has great hands. He catches the ball away from his frame effortlessly, sure-handed, and not just that, but he transitions from the catch to a running weapon smoothly. He swivels his hips, and bam, he's moving upfield. So he looked really good. You're supposed to look good in a t-shirt and shorts in a passing practice. Okay, so we'll see what happens. But Kincaid, they're going to try to get him up to speed ASAP for week one. Second thing I think that is critical to watch, the slot receiver when it's not Kincaid. Who takes over for Isaiah McKenzie as the wide receiver in the slot? Time will tell. We don't know. Now, the second thing that I was very carefully watching was who is going to win the slot wide receiver job when Kincaid isn't in the slot, which is going to be a lot of the time. And it's a wide open competition between Khalil Shakir, Deontay Hardy, Trent Sherfield, three guys who can play there. And we won't know till well into preseason. But I think Khalil Shakir did himself well in spring practices. He looked good. He saw a lot of targets. He caught the ball well. He's a factor.
Yeah, and to your point on just how, it's early to tell some of this stuff, I think what's so important right now is just Josh Allen building that rapport with some of these guys. I mean, Shakir's only had 1 year here, a lot of new guys on the team. So just having that opportunity to get down that chemistry, that timing, more so than, actual football right now. So I think that's been, that was something Josh also mentioned with Stefon too, of, well, since he's not here, I'm getting more reps with all these other guys. So yeah, I'll be interested too to see how they use Trent Sherfield. Caught up with him some this week about just what it's been like for him so far, coming to a new team. And, there has been a lot of turnover on this offense. When you look at receivers, tight ends, running backs, outside of some of, a couple key guys, it's a lot of turnover. So I think that'll be interesting to see just kind of how that chemistry comes together quickly.
Yeah, and it's about trust, really. Like you mentioned the chemistry, the trust. I mean, last summer, McKenzie caught a lot of passes from Josh, but then as the season went on early on, Josh didn't trust McKenzie for whatever reason. Didn't. So that's something to watch. A couple things huge elements that we know nothing from spring practice is the running game. Damian Harris, I thought, did show good hands. They didn't throw to him much in New England because they got Ramondre Stevenson and others, but I thought Damian Harris did show good hands. I have high expectations for him as a runner, but it's not a running practice in the shortened T-shirts. We don't know. Osiris Torrance, they drafted him high in the second round. You got to think they'd like to see him win the starting guard job. Run blocking, again, nothing sorts itself out on the offensive line in T-shirts and shorts.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with Nyheim Hines this year. Brandon Beane said towards the end of the season that would be something moving forward of let's use him a little more creatively. Both of us have said really over and over, hard to tell too much right now, but I think that's something that seems as trending away that could be a little more fun. So a lot to still kind of happen on the offense, but yeah, some creativity early in the May and June days.
On defense, the Bills commenced some big position battles in the spring that will take place in earnest in training camp. And they had some big late spring additions to the defense. Katherine, what were some of your takeaways on defense from the spring practices?
Yeah, so a few things, but we can start with Leonard Floyd. They brought him in right around the time they were having their ceremonial groundbreaking busy day for the Buffalo Bills. But I think there were a few things that stood out with that to me. Most notably, Brandon Beane saying that this was not a move that indicated anything about Von Miller's timeline as he returns from his knee injury. This was more just in a vacuum. They really liked Leonard Floyd. They like what he could bring here. He seems like he feels good about the fit too, mentioning how, there were reasons that he turned down more money to be in Buffalo, thinking that they can win a Super Bowl here. He's been teammates with Von Miller before, so that's a nice reunion. But I think even just defensively, that is a big late addition that they're bringing in here.
I totally agree. And I actually, in my opinion, even counting the Diggs kerfuffle, the acquisition of Leonard Floyd was the single biggest development for this team in the OTAs and minicamps, in my opinion. I mean, this is a guy who had 9 sacks in 2022. He had 9.5 sacks in 2021. He had 10.5 sacks in 2020. That's a lot of consistent production. And really, if we're saying that Von Miller isn't going to be ready to start week 1, and I don't think he will be. That's just an opinion. You've got Greg Rousseau on one end and AJ Epinesa as the lead guy on the other side. It looks a whole lot better with Greg Rousseau on one side and Leonard Floyd on the other. And then when Miller comes back, you throw that into the mix with Miller, Floyd, Rousseau, and then Epinesa is your 4th best edge rusher. Boy, that looks pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think that was something Brandon Beane mentioned too, how they like to go in those waves. It seems like Floyd will be playing less snaps than he did with the Los Angeles Rams those last couple of seasons, just based off how they used him. So just capitalizing on those. But you mentioned those sack numbers. That's someone who you're adding who's going to make a difference. You mentioned big storylines of OTAs, minicamp, Damar Hamlin being back practicing in a more full capacity, having his helmet on, going through more stuff. There's still a lot of steps for him to take, but that was really notable. Dane Jackson had told me a story about Damar having an interception, a pick 6 during a day that was closed to media, but just how much that meant to everyone on the team. Sean McDermott as well, saying it was really cool to witness. So again, more to go on that front for Damar, but seems to be taking all the right steps and participating more than before. So really exciting to see that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed it, but I thought there was some emotion in Sean McDermott's voice when he talked about Damar and that pick in practice. I mean,
totally.
He's rooting for him, on a personal level. 2 other points. One, CB2 is wide open. Put your money down on whoever you want. I think that is a wide open competition. Middle linebacker is wide open. And for my money, Terrell Bernard is the favorite going into training camp. He's the second year. They invested a third-round draft choice on him. We'll see how it goes, but I view him as the slight favorite in that middle linebacker spot.
Yeah, I think one other thing I've enjoyed about OTAs and minicamp is hearing from so many of those other coaches on the defensive side. We heard from Bobby Babich, who coaches linebackers, Al Holcomb, a senior defensive assistant who's new to the staff but has worked extensively with Sean McDermott before. And I think just getting to hear insight from all those coaches too. On the linebacker front, I don't think they're in a rush to decide that starter, but still just cool to hear what they're looking for, what goes into that when they did have that consistency for so many years with Tremaine Edmonds. And then, picking their brains too about what's it like now watching Sean McDermott take on calling the defense again since he hasn't for a few years. Those were some fun anecdotes from different coaches about seeing how excited he is to have that again. So, interesting to get all those perspectives during a long summer.
No doubt there will be a lot to watch in training camp, and the Buffalo News will have coverage every single day leading up to the start of training camp in late July. So follow us on buffalonews.com and follow PlayAction wherever you get your podcasts.